the most basic thing is definitely showing up, because Twitter, whether we like it or not, is definitely the place to be for NFTs, crypto art, all the things connected to. At the moment, because of the bear market, we don't see so many scams and people trying to scam on other people, which is great.
What's up, boys and girls? Welcome to Digital Creator University, the place where you come to learn all the tips and tricks and hacks and tools to becoming a digital influencer. This week, we have Darko on our episode. Darko is a digital creator and a forward-thinking, exploring universes beyond the horizons of existence, inspired by the Metaverse and the stories within. The NFT artist and explorer, Darko joins us for episode 2 of the Digital Creator University podcast. Darko has been in this space since 2018, so put on your headphones and enjoy. All right, welcome, Darko. Darko joins us from Macedonia, and I love Darko's hoodie. Darko, can you just show it for the audience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
BYC.
BYC, right? Bored Ape Yacht Club. They've done great stuff so far. I think it's one of the only profile picture projects that I'm bullish long term.
Oh, don't forget the CryptoPunks.
Oh, yes. I mean, they bought the CryptoPunks, right? So they owned all the stuff now. So they're coming from everywhere there. All right. So let's begin with your brief history before NFTs. Can you give us a little history? What do you do before NFTs and how you jumped into the NFT bandwagon?
So yeah, my journey before NFTs is still basically connected with technology and art. So I was studying the automation and programming in high school, and then continued into the art faculty, more or less combining both of those things into one thing. But because of that, I used to work with a lot of, I was working in the marketing agencies, and that at some point I started going as a freelancer, working on as storyboard artist and doing art shows more or less. And usually another part of my work was connected to curation of art, mostly on the digital side of things, but still it was mostly about the art. And then at some point, with the art communities that I was staying in touch, it was mostly the art community from Germany and some other open communities that were basically from all around the world, that we used to hang out a lot on Discords, and communities that were focused on technology and art in the same time. So trying to combine both things, and also some part of the financial things, which included a lot of the decentralization and the idea of decentralization, kind of brought me to NFTs. I've been kind into crypto. I've been looking at the technology, not crypto, blockchain, to be more precise. I guess blockchain would be probably the proper term, because I am fan of decentralization and how we can use the technology of NFTs in the next couple of years. But yeah, that is basically how everything started.
That's quite interesting that you were into digital art before NFTs, if I get it right.
Sorry, into what?
Yeah, that you were into digital art even before NFTs were.
Oh yeah.
They blew up, right?
The reason NFTs blew up through digital art was, one of the reasons was because there was let's say a legal gap when people were acquiring digital art. So which required signing NDAs and all those things, the details, so everything can be legally properly done. But then with the Kevin McCoy's piece that came up, that idea was talked a lot in the art communities and the art and tech communities. But when Kevin McCoy's piece was minted on the blockchain, it kind of changed the game a lot. We had, after that, we had the crypto winter at that time, and then we saw a lot of artists just exchanging art between each other, like Xcopy, Rob Ness, a lot of money, etc., Trevor Jones, and that's how kind of things started moving up. And then with the big sale that Beeple did probably 2 years ago,
COVID
is
$69 million. It's got the first 300 days, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
I think
and that is
Metaco and bought it. Yeah,
and that
yeah,
is
yeah,
probably when we had the biggest
yeah.
entry point of artists coming into NFTs, which was really interesting that at the time with that many people jumping in, also the idea about NFTs, how they can be used like throughout all of society, not just into the art field,
Yeah.
kind of went even further.
That's quite interesting because most people, I don't think most people who are cognizant of NFTs understand that there was like a digital art market before this. And because most people, when they got to know NFTs, they got to know by projects like, Bored Ape Yacht Club, the hoodie that you're wearing, or CryptoPunks. Like most people know something that, people did. And then there was this plethora of like profile pictures. So most people might not be cognizant of the fact that there was a digital art market before. I just want to ask you, like, how does digital art market used to work before, and how this on-chain verification and on-chain minting of digital art, how has that changed the game?
I mean, it has changed the game because in a certain way, of course, like not completely, but in a certain way, we kind of lost the middleman that we had, like the legal implications that
Yeah,
we use, like in the meantime, like in between. And then with NFTs, that has changed a lot. And with NFTs, we also saw a lot of new collectors actually coming up, or people that were not collectors at all, but they were interested. Like they loved digital art, they
yeah,
loved enjoying it. And at some point, like even those people kind of started collecting. Like some collectors that I've met are actually people that started collecting digital art recently, even though like we have also like the I really don't like using this word phygital.
Wait,
Like
what's phygital?
phygital,
Tell to the audience what's phygital.
so phygital is basically if you have a digital art or
Yeah.
digital piece that's connected to a physical piece.
Okay.
So if you have like the physical piece as an NFT, you can connect it also with the digital
Digital piece.
NFT.
Yeah. That's interesting because I think Masterworks is one of the websites that's doing like, fractional ownership of physical art, but that's not on blockchain. And this is on blockchain, which means it's like verifiable and non-fungible. And like, you can
Exactly.
basically own it in your wallet.
I mean, we have two parts, like with digital art. Still, we have like one part of digital art is still like, I mean, the data, like the images or the videos, etc., are still stored on decentralized clouds like
Yeah.
IPFS or Arweave. But that is one part of the art and how we approach NFTs, and the other part is having the pieces directly on chain.
Yeah. So
Having the pieces on chain is definitely a lot more valuable because
yeah.
it's exactly there. Nothing can happen. In theory, nothing can happen like with the decentralized clouds also, but still, like when you have
I
it on
mean,
the block, it's definitely staying there.
yes, because like we need scalable blockchains for that, which I think will come in the future. Like the technology is just in its nascency and it's building. But like when we talk about decentralized storage, for example, you mentioned Arweave. To the best of my knowledge, I think most people get confused about Arweave because it is like a pricing mechanism, but it stores all the stuff you have on Amazon Web Service. So it's
That's
like an yes, it's like an algorithm, and they've set the pricing that you won't have to pay ever again, but it stores on Amazon Web Service, which is centralized.
yeah, that's why I said the
Yeah,
reason that the pieces that are directly on
yeah,
chain have a lot more value.
a lot more value. Yes. Also, going back to middlemen, when Christie sold Beeple's piece, which Metacoven bought for $69 million, I recall that Metacoven was saying that Christie still took the middleman cut, which was in
Of
millions,
course,
and he was
yeah.
like, they didn't need to curate the art because it's on the blockchain. So why do I have to pay the middleman? Which was really funny,
I mean, that's why
right?
I mentioned that we still have the middleman, because I mean,
Hmm.
even though like we like to talk about decentralization and
Yeah,
cutting off the middleman, etc., at some places we definitely still need the middleman.
yeah,
Like we saw that with I mean, with things like with the auction houses, etc., and then we have like the DAO structure that at some point was really catchy and interesting for so many
yes.
people, and people started creating all kinds of crazy DAOs
So
that
yes,
weren't functioning in the end. I mean, of course, like, a lot of them are still functioning, but they really went into the DAO model properly the way it should be done. And I mean, probably the biggest problem with DAOs was and still is, I guess, the voting mechanism. But I think that's changing slowly.
Yeah, I think also not only the voting mechanism, but like say a DAO has voted a certain way, it is again on the part of the centralized entity to go and execute what the DAO has voted for. So they could choose not to do that. So it's like it is a voting mechanism, but obviously, like we're talking about the in technology being in its nascency, and I feel like as we progress along, all of these things will be automated. It's a really good concept, and we're moving towards that. But like in its present form, all these DAOs were like there was a bit of fluff in the market. That's what I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
with the current structure that we have with the DAOs, I still believe that we still have to have like certain person that's on top of everything
Yes.
that
Yeah.
has certain control, because otherwise things can go completely crazy.
Yeah, they can go berserk in no time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen some of those things. I mean, going berserk, but still like
Yeah.
nothing.
So like going to the what is the term you call like phygital?
No, yeah,
Physical and yeah, going to that term, like do you feel like in the broader market where like it's not only the NFT holders but in the broader market, phygital maybe makes more or less sense than only digital? Like if I was to say talk to a person who's not into the NFT or blockchain space, and I would say, hey, you know what, there is this painting that is like, you know, stored in Christie's gallery, but you can own like a fractional ownership of that painting. Do you think that would make more sense, or is it digital, or like how do you see it translated into the wider community, not like the blockchain community? Because like you and I, we understand the concept of digital. I don't have to take care of the restoration. Nobody has to take care of the custody. I can own that piece in my wallet, and you know nobody could change that. Which I think both you and I would agree is like a much better model. But how do you see it translating to like, you know, the wider community?
I believe what we'll see, like how the wider community will approach to to this topic, would be the traditional art market. So
Yeah.
basically, people that collect physical works, they will still continue collecting physical works, and some of them will definitely go and start to collecting digital works too. It really
Yeah.
depends, but I believe what we'll see will be collectors collecting physical works, and they will receive the NFT as a package with the physical painting.
Yeah.
At least for the collectors that are still not into Web3. But I believe that if you have like a certain way to track that physical piece with the NFT, that will be the value that we'll get. I mean, we already kind of have that with NFC chips, etc.
Yeah.
So that's probably not probably, but that is the way to go,
Yeah.
like with physical work and NFTs as an authenticating mechanism.
Yeah, because I keep on thinking like, how can we bridge people from Web 2 to Web 3, and what could be the bridges? And I thought when you mentioned like, you know, phygital, I was like, this could be an interesting bridge to get people into Web 3 and understand what the concept is. Because like only you have the custody, nobody else does, which is like the greatest thing ever. Like you can take it anywhere you want to.
Oh,
It,
definitely.
I mean,
I mean, one of the small problems that we have right now is
yeah.
probably the user interface.
Oh yes.
How like the user interface for the wallets, for the markets, checking all on the
Yeah.
transactions and all those things. Because usually people that are not tech savvy
Yeah.
would have problems with these things. I mean,
Yeah.
they are complicated in a certain way.
Yes.
And I guess like simplifying these things and managing to do that will definitely onboard a lot more people from Web 2.
Yeah.
And the other thing will be trying to create something where, I mean, let's say we take, for example, like certain gallery that's reselling art. I mean, for now, the galleries or I mean, the galleries that we have at the moment that are doing that are kind of holding down, are the keepers of your pieces. So
Yes.
you have to connect to,
Custodians. Yeah.
yeah, definitely,
Custodians. Yes. Yes.
which is great. It's not bad at all,
Hmm.
but we definitely need a more secure system for that, because if something happens to them,
Yeah.
it's it's the person that's on the other side that's losing their I mean their
Yes.
NFTs, their art,
Yeah.
whatever be it.
I think like this just makes me think another thing. Say, for example, I had a NFT for like a physical art somewhere in a gallery, and say the gallery catches fire and the physical art is obliterated. I still have the digital impersonation of the physical art. So it's like a value added on top of the physical art. So that digital art might not, it's not going to go to zero even if the physical piece goes to zero, because you have digital arts that don't have any physical piece still retain value. So like this could be a good way to hedge against all those kind of calamities as well, if you just NFTize the physical art.
I mean, definitely, we have
Right.
so many use cases in this that
Yeah.
we'll see all kinds of different stuff. I mean, sometimes people value the digital more rather than the physical because
Yeah.
they are more digitally native,
Yes.
and sometimes it will be the other way around. So I believe, I mean, what I believe is going to happen, at least for now, and what we are seeing that for now, is the value of the physical is basically the same as the digital,
Yes.
because it's the same piece. It's just something that
Yeah.
connects both of them.
Yeah.
So for example, if I'm selling a painting to someone,
Yeah.
then I'm giving them the NFT. So if they want to resell the painting, they will. It depends, like if they're blockchain
If they want to.
native or not, they will probably sell the physical with the NFT also.
Yeah.
So we have that example with Rolex, I believe.
Rolex. Okay.
Yeah, Rolex NFT one of their watches. It's probably a lot more since then, but
Yeah.
we'll have the use case of the automobile industry getting into
Yeah.
NFT.
Yeah.
So I believe it was Nissan. So when you buy the car, you actually receive an NFT.
See.
So
Okay.
with all the data and all the information, probably we'll see a lot more use cases with NFTs into the traditional world, let's say the
Yeah.
Web2 world, with the technology improving and getting more mature. So basically, you'll have all the information about your car
Yeah.
with the NFT. So if you resell your car, you're also giving away the NFT with the car,
Yeah. Yeah.
or it goes automatically. So you can actually have all that information. So we'll have all those things connected with
Yes.
on chain so we can track. I mean, we'll see
Exactly.
a lot of that, like with the housing market and all. I think we already had. Not I think
Yeah.
I'm sure that we already had like a house being sold as an NFT. But
I mean,
I mean, we'll see a lot more of that once regulations and things kind of clear up.
clear up, right? I think before we pivot to the next point, I think the value of digital art should be more than physical, because all these collectible brands understand this, that they're only selling collectibles like Rolex. And the problem with these collectibles, physical collectibles, is say we live in a war-torn country. You can't take your physical painting with you if you want to leave, but you can take that NFT in your phone. So I think the accessibility and the movability should give it more value than the physical collectibles. That's just my take on it. I think you and I would agree on that. But like,
Definitely.
right? All right. We're moving to the next point, I guess. So you've sold NFTs on like various platforms. Was this because of like experiment? You wanted to experiment with different platforms, or like were you just you had certain preference, or how is it?
It's a bit of both. So I mean, basically, it really depends, like on if the platforms are completely open or if it's curated platforms. Like for example, because at the moment I'm using Manifold's custom contract. So Manifold's custom contract shows up on every platform except on the curated ones.
Okay.
So I mean, the the thing is that like it's mostly about whose custom contract are you using at. So at some point I was using the custom contract of certain platform, and I didn't like how the custom contract was actually gathering all the works from the artist into their collection. So if you went to let's say to the collection that you've minted your work, you wouldn't have like separate collection. You would have minted in the same collection with everyone else. So if
Oh,
you have, let's say, 5 pieces,
yeah.
and if you click on the collection, you won't be taken to a separate, let's say, folder or
Yeah.
collection where you can actually see only the 5 pieces. But once you click on the collection, you will actually see every piece that's being minted on their platform. So you can, like, for me as an artist, it was
Yeah.
really important when someone clicks my collection so they can see all the pieces from that collection,
Yeah.
because sometimes like the pieces that I'm doing are connected, either it's an idea or visually or both. You would like to for someone to see the whole
Yes.
picture,
I mean,
and
as
that
a
was one of the problems that some
yeah.
platforms I mean, some of them still do, but I mean, majority of the curated platforms are doing fantastic work, either if it's their custom contract or if it's at the moment manifold, which is fantastic.
I mean, that's as a Web3 minded individual, that sounds preposterous that you would ask all the artists to mint their, NFTs or art on a single contract. It just sounds preposterous to me. Sorry. So like full
It
disclosure,
does.
like yes, it sounds
Absolutely.
preposterous. So like we're building this platform called Shareching, where like you could every artist would get like a separate contract for not only their profile, but any collection that you make inside will have like a separate contract. So anybody can go and see whatever contract you've created and whatever art you have posted into that.
Yeah,
So that's
the
one of the
way
things of
it
yes,
should be.
because I was really particular about that because like it just sounds really preposterous that all the art is collected under the same collection. That's basically saying store all your art in our database in a certain way for the Web2 audience who don't really maybe understand fully grasp the idea of what's going on here. But like I'm a bit shocked to know
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
I was shocked at the
yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
especially when it comes like when you don't expect these things from bigger platforms.
Yes, and especially like Web3 platforms. Isn't that why
Yeah,
we're building the whole movement, right?
exactly.
I mean, also I find like when I see your artworks, right, you're not correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not only into like the profile pictures,
Oh no, I mean the
right?
profile pictures are the projects that I've been supporting and being
Yeah,
part of,
yeah, yeah,
basic communities.
yeah,
But so the profile pictures are not, I mean, of course there are PFP projects that are connected
yeah,
to it,
yeah,
but the
yeah.
majority, we can imagine them as being like
Yes,
small companies or startups
yes,
or
yes.
something like that. And with the art side, it's a bit different because like
Mm,
you're representing yourself as an artist that does
yeah,
digital work, and it's completely separate from the collection. Usually with PFPs, we see some kind of utility, and with art, of course, like there is utility in some
yeah.
art too, but mostly the art is itself the utility.
Yes. So how I view this PFP whole collection thing is that, you had this initial idea that was probably from like CryptoKitties or like, CryptoPunks. And then Bored Ape Yacht Club came and they blew everything out of proportion and they were like really big. It still are, right? But then everybody just started following the framework. And then you had like this basically market surplus of all these PFP collections coming in. And I think the initial ones that started this whole thing are going to retain their value, even grow their value because they are really focused on like, how to build and sustain a digital community. But I'm not too sure about the other ones that are coming around. And I just found it really interesting when I saw your artwork and I was like, oh, this is not PFPs. It's actual art, which was really interesting to me because now we have plethora of these PFP, projects coming out in the market. All right, can I ask you something? Talk to me about like what's the regular process of how you create art because I'm really curious. So like from the idea and inception to like when the artwork is ready, how do you take that whole journey?
Oh, so I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
really depends what I'm working on,
yeah,
but usually, especially like the last year, the topic that I'm kind of resolving around, like where
yeah,
my art resolves around, the inspiration and the story comes from the blockchain
yes,
world, NFT world, and crypto art world. So the topics I get is usually like certain things that happened, or like certain things that happened personally to for me, or
yeah,
it's something that's being like a major event or happening that's happened in
yeah,
the whole space, or it could be like the whole story of how like the crypto art world has been resolving, like, or like let's say there is a one piece that's called Dimensions, so it
yeah,
basically is the story of like the real world, quote unquote, and the digital world.
yeah.
So it kind of shares that story. So usually that's how the idea comes
I
for the
mean,
abstract ones. I
yeah,
mean, if I go with more figurative, then it's more obvious like what the idea is because
yes,
it's figurative. But when it comes to creating the abstract pieces, I really love in like combining technologies. Even when I was studying, like when I was more into traditional art, I was combining different types of art. I mean, different types of techniques to create a certain piece. So that kind of reflected on the digital art side. So basically it could be, I mean, at least the last works I'm working on, I do combination of, I use textures that I'm creating by myself, like through traditional printmaking. So I use those textures to have the base for the piece. Then I go with digital painting on top. There are certain elements I really supported generative arts and the artists that are working in that field, and it is something that I really love. So I'm kind of trying to learn a bit more about it, like on the text later, so coding and all those things.
Yeah.
So I kind of found the art that I do and the simple little elements that I want to implement in my art have been like a gateway to P5JS and generative art. So basically, if I need a circle, I would love to have that circle generated, I mean, written in code and use that circle in the piece. And it's been like a really nice journey to learn more, like learn new techniques and implement them in the works. And in the same time, bring that story that I want to share with the world on chain.
This all sounds so interesting to me because like I'm actually talking to a proper digital artist. I'm really excited to hear. And like I do want to ask because I haven't asked this to any digital artists before. Like I've heard a lot of interviews about like, you know, how AI and Stable Diffusion and DALL-E are like maybe they're changing the game and, you know, text to art systems. But what is, as a digital artist, like what is your take on the AI side of things?
I mean, when I mean, AI has been around for a lot longer than people realize. It kind of got into mainstream when Midjourney, DALL-E, and all the other prompt AIs came up.
Yes.
Where actually you just write something and then you kind of have an image. But even with that, with the prompt AI coming up, we saw a lot of really good art. It's basically a tool. So it's really how you use it. And so far, the artists that we've seen that are successful with AI have been the artists that are using AI as a tool and not as something to write down and just spit an image. I mean, there are artists that work with AI that I personally know that spend more time on creating an AI piece rather than they're spending time on their physical piece or digital piece. If time is something that gives value to the piece.
I mean, it certainly does, right?
Well, it depends, because sometimes you can spend like, let's say 5 days on creating something, and sometimes you can spend 2 hours creating the same things. Of course, if it's I mean, it really depends what you're creating, but sometimes the idea is a lot more important than just the piece. Because you can make the best looking piece, and if it doesn't have a story or if it doesn't have anything except for the visual piece, it's, I mean, of course, it would be a great piece, and you will understand the value about the techniques used and the time spent. But if it's just a beautiful piece, sometimes it's just a beautiful piece. It really depends. Like, of course, I'm not saying that beautiful pieces are bad pieces or should have less value. There are some fantastic works out there.
I mean, to any listeners out there, I tried my hand on one of the text to, you know, generative AI art development platforms, and it's not as easy as just writing text and, you know, it's spitting out an image. Like if you wanted to really get deep into it, which I don't have like artistic mind, so to speak, or creative mind, but I could see like you need to spend a lot of time in the different layers or fusing different kind of images and stuff. It's not as easy as people maybe sometimes make it out to be, that you just, you know, write text and it just spits out an image and there you go. It's like you can be sitting down in front of the text bar and you're like, what do I write? Bananas? I mean, what do I write?
That was the next thing I wanted to mention, because we saw a lot of people that were not artists, so they were not creating art before AI, but they had the knowledge and they had the visual approach. They knew they understand what's good and what's not good, like connected, like talking about like contrast, color, shape, etc. And people that had this knowledge and that had the time to go into the technical part have created some fantastic pieces, because, and also they had the knowledge about history of art.
Yeah.
So they when they were writing the prompts, they knew exactly what to write. Well, of course, like people are experimenting and all of that, but as you said, like even when I said like for the first time on the general, I've used Gun as an AI tool in the past just to see how it works. I really wanted to understand, to understand how it functions.
Yeah.
So when I went into the prompt AI and platforms, I mean, the first thing, of course, you write something down, like let's say like Kazim Malevich, digital,
Yeah.
etc. And you get some results, of course, but it's not the results that you would expect to come up right away.
Yes.
If you want to have something like that, you would definitely have to spend more time at writing down the proper prompts. So then writing down like what the AI should focus on and how it should approach the whole piece, so it can actually, so the result that can actually spit out can be a lot better, not just a simple image that's being written with the prompt.
Yeah, no, that's totally the case. How do you take like building a community around your art? How do you approach that? Because building a digital community around art is such an important piece. And what are like the problems that you find that might be existing in the current platforms in creating a digital community around your art piece?
So basically the communities, how we're building the communities, it's, I mean, it's the most basic thing is definitely showing up, because Twitter, whether we like it or not, is definitely the place to be for NFTs and crypto arts. But engaging into the community as a whole and talking with people and understanding the technology and all that is happening in that world is probably the best way to go. Because usually, especially when the Beeple thing happened, was it 2 years ago or was it 3 years ago?
That was like March 2021.
Okay, so 2 years ago.
Yes. Yes. So almost, yes.
COVID messed up everything with
Yes.
time.
Yes. Yes, it
So
did.
we saw a lot of people jumping into NFTs,
Yeah.
into NFT art in this case, that expected that, because that was the thing that was being talked in the media, that, oh, you put something on the blockchain, there's always someone that will buy it, and people jumped in so fast and thought that once you put something on the blockchain, it's going to be bought right away, and that lasted at least for a few months, and after that people started understanding. So the people that were truly about NFTs, blockchain, etc., stayed in the space, even like at the moment, like with the market and what's going on, like with crypto going down and everything going down. The people that are truly here to for that side, like truly for the art and for the decentralization and the communities, you'll still see the same people. And the people that jumped in just to earn something, we kind of lost it. I mean, of course, you don't have to be like active on Twitter, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But it is something that people like to see.
I think from a macro perspective, like Fed pumped in a lot of liquidity in the market, printed a lot of dollars, and everybody had a lot of money. And since like our generation is more digitally focused or digitally native, people started buying digital assets instead of physical assets because it's really cool to have like an animated piece, which is also an asset, as opposed to having like, stocks of some company that you never heard before. And so that happened. And when they started sucking the liquidity out, the whole market started to tank. And I think you're right. Now we see only the builders and people who are truly artists and, Web3 focused in the space, which is really cool because I was at this conference a couple of months ago. And I asked somebody, he's like, why do you buy NFTs? He's like, just to flip it. And I'm like, interesting. So we haven't had a complete washout yet until we
That's
stop
why I meant,
listening those kind
like,
of things, right?
we have
Yeah.
3 different sides, maybe. We
Yeah.
have, on one side we have like flippers people, and
Yes.
it's a really funny thing. So a person that I've met on Twitter
Yeah.
Spaces, we were talking about, and I asked him, like, he mentioned that he was into stocks and all of those
Yeah.
things, and I was like, why are you in NFTs? And he was like, well, stocks end up at 4 p.m. NFTs are 24/7.
Yes. It's 24/7 market, never sleeps.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it was really funny to hear that.
Yeah.
And then we have like the art side people that invest, like, of course,
Yeah.
which is not exactly as flipping, like buy something
No, it's
now,
not.
it's
Yeah.
in 5 minutes. But yeah, so we kind of have different, and you always have people that collect digital art because they want to have the art. Of course,
Yes.
there are collectors that invest and collect the same piece. So maybe they will sell it at some point, maybe not, but
Yeah,
it's an interesting place to be, especially when you have like art, technology, ideas, branding, marketing,
yes.
everything combined at once. And it's completely new world. It's some things are definitely the same as Web2,
Yeah.
but there are some new things that are coming up. Even the way marketing works, like some pieces of marketing of the marketing part are definitely the same as Web2 and how they
Yeah.
work. But there are some things that are kind of Web3 native. They kind of
Yes.
built up with the Web3 space.
Yeah, that's why I asked you how you approach like building a community, because like we're going through bear markets, and if anybody wanted to start like being an NFT artist now or want to get into this space and is seeing this market where like things are going down, the one question they would be thinking is like, how do I approach community building? And I think you've given some great value here, where you say like how to approach this, and some of the things in Web3 might be very different to how you brand yourself in a Web2 space, which is quite interesting to hear. What do you think is like some of the things that somebody who wants to jump from the Web2 space to the Web3 space should know about the space? Just while on this topic.
Definitely, if whoever wants to jump in the Web3 space, I would
Yeah.
definitely say security is probably the first thing. Because at the moment, because of the bear market, thanks to the
Yeah.
bear market, we don't see so many scams and people trying to scam on other people, which is great. A lot of people are building, a lot of new things will pop up. Like there's probably millions of things behind the curtains that we haven't seen or thought of. And I believe that once the bear market ends and we get into the bull market, we'll we'll definitely see a lot of innovation. Because even in the bear market, we're seeing innovation, and I can imagine what's happening with how many teams are building in the background. So definitely security, how to keep your assets safe, and definitely ledger or treasure, like having a hard
Yeah.
wallet, one of the most important things, especially if you own valuable assets. The other thing, if it's about the art, I would say understanding and learning the history of crypto art. I mean, of course, like art history is an important factor since
Yeah.
since every how we got here, but definitely the history of crypto art would be really important. That not just because who the artists were, of course,
Yeah.
like it's really interesting, and there are really interesting stories about who the first artists, let's say,
Yeah.
on the blockchain were, but also the approach, how they approach the blockchain, how it started at the time, how it's going now. Because a lot of those things that started at the time are still really valuable and being kind of, let's say, reused with newer communities, with people jumping in later, even though it's not late.
Yeah.
I mean, it is something that's going to happen more and more, but definitely the history of crypto art would be really important.
I think that's an excellent point, because sometimes people don't realize how crypto native people and Web3 people are so emotionally driven for their own community. Like you and I are talking about, like, no, digital art is better than physical art. You like, people should have a deep dive into how crypto art started,
I mean,
which is a very
one of the
valuable
reasons.
lesson.
Oh, sorry for interrupting.
No
One of
worries.
the reasons why I see why we have like why we are trying to make this like why is it so emotional for us? It's probably because like I mean we are kind of like everyone so far is kind of building what the world is yet to see in
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
and it kind of feels like like creating your own thing and letting it go in the world. And especially when it comes like with decentralization and all those things, it is something a lot of people want to see. I personally, I believe that it's something that's going to make a decent change in the world in a positive way. So some things will become a lot better than they used to be. But we've been living in for at least hundreds of years in more or less the same systems.
Yes.
And that is probably why there is like why there is such big emotional value
Yeah.
to all of that we're doing.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would like to add to this is that anybody who gets into crypto has to understand a lot of different facets of the industry. Like you have finance macro attached to it, you have tokenomics attached to it, you have like the digital technology attached to it, then you have the understanding of art on top of it, then you have the understanding of community building, then you have to understand how the regulations work. And when you understand all of that, that's when you start understanding crypto. And when you start understanding all of this, you start understanding how this could be such a better solution to the already existing systems. And I think just having like maybe a basic knowledge of all these different fields, like say you're an artist, but you might understand macro finance or tokenomics a little more than other artists who are not in the Web3 space. Because like you're constantly bombarded with all this information, right? And it's like, or the community building and stuff. And once you start understanding all of this, you're like, holy hell, this is how the world works. And this is how this is such a better solution.
Yeah,
And that's, yeah, right. I mean, and that's when we see all this emotion coming out, like, no, this is a better solution because we understand the basics of all this stuff. And I think that's one thing, like, people, when they see Web3 space from like a bird's eye perspective, don't understand why are these guys so passionate. Like, go down the rabbit hole.
yeah, I was still waiting for that,
Yeah,
like
it's like,
jumping in the rabbit hole.
yeah, it's like, go down the rabbit hole, research for a year, and then we'll talk.
I mean, and even all that you said,
Yeah,
like once you get to a certain point and you think that you know something, there
yeah,
is always something new coming up. Like
yeah,
it's really interesting.
yeah.
For people that like to see new things, especially technology and art wise, I believe that everyone will enjoy this space. It can be complete mess in the beginning, and you might think that you will never understand anything.
Yeah.
But at some point, once you pick the things that you actually like,
Yeah.
at some point you'll find your direction and go to the path that you want to take.
Exactly. I think last question, how do you see NFTs going from like 2023 to like say 10 years from now, 5 years from now? How do you see the space progressing?
If we're talking about like the PFP projects, I think that we had that saturation of PFPs last year, and everyone tried to be, of course, like we saw a few other PFP projects that were really good. Aside from from the Bored Ape, I'm taking the Bored Ape as a
Blue
sample.
chips.
They were the freshest one last 2 years ago. They and a lot of them projects were trying to copycat the Bored Ape. So you have like, I don't know, like certain PFP project and their utility, their roadmap would be merge or something like that. I mean, that's not what made all those projects like good. It was the innovation. So I believe that people are jumping into PFPs a lot because they expect for that PFP project to be the next Bored Apes. And then the next Bored Apes or CryptoPunks or CryptoKitties or Art Blocks or any other project might not even be visually, it might not be anything similar to those projects. It could be something completely else. Like we saw that with the ENS domains. I mean, the ENS domains do not have a PFP or anything. It's just names. It's not quite just, but it's a name that's connected to the .heat service, and that was it. But you don't have a PFP, you don't have roadmaps or anything. I mean, the whole concept about DNS is its roadmap. But people should. That's why understanding and getting the knowledge about the space and about the technology and the ideas, it's really important, because if you understand all these parts, you will see you will probably see the next big thing.
Yeah, I think it's a general consensus amongst like people in the NFT space that understand the space is that, the time for PFP projects might be behind us. And the blue chips are obviously, they're going to sustain their value because they were the first ones and they have the biggest community, the biggest branding, and we love them, right? We love the art as well. But for the people who want to jump now, they might have to think of other frameworks maybe to follow, not just copycat the same framework. And I love the fact that somebody who's a digital artist has said that, because I've been thinking the same thing for a while now. But you see all these new PFP projects pop up, and you're like, huh, am I wrong? Or like, what's going on here?
I mean,
Right?
we see a lot of PFP projects
Yeah.
still popping up, even in the bear market.
Mm.
But you see that the value is there for a few days or a week or a month, and after that it goes down.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the ones that came up in the bear market, and I mean that we'll see. I hope that we'll see them continue building in future, and actually prove that they're
Yes.
actually a blue chip project.
Yeah.
Because there are potentially really good PFP projects that came out in the bear market or a long
Yeah.
time after the Board Aircraft Club
Yeah.
that will definitely retain their value. And there are some that we still have to see what's going to happen. But I believe if
Yeah.
you have the right team, if you're there, if the team is there for the love of the project, if they're building the thing because they love what they're doing, not because of the financial gains, I believe those are usually the projects that will survive. And the community definitely sees all these things.
Yeah. All right. On that note, I think we're going to end this discussion. I absolutely loved and enjoyed talking to you. It's like one of the few times I've talking to like, an actual digital artist. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you very much for taking out the time.
And thank you for the invitation for the
All right.
podcast. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day then. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
All right. All right.